Come have fun with us and don't forget to subscribe.
What's up everybody, I'm Rick.
And I'm Anna.
And welcome to our review of the 1936 movie Mr. Deeds Goes to Town.
Welcome, welcome.
For those of you who don't know, this channel is our bucket list channel, a channel in which we try to realize the goals and dreams that are on our bucket list. And one of those goals is for us to watch every movie that was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Award from 1927 to 2028. As of now, we have watched 71 movies, including this one, that we're going to be talking about today. Mr. Deed Goes to Town tells the story of a simple small-town man who inherits a massive fortune and is immediately hounded by those who wish to take advantage of him. Released on April 12, 1936, this Columbia Picture movie is based on the 1935 short story Opera Hat by Clarence Buddington Keeland. So Anna, this is the movie, this is our story, this small town folk wins a fortune, 20 million.
Oh my god, what? It's like, that's the dream, you know?
Right.
You live your life carefree and suddenly $20 million drop
Fall
out
on your
of
laps.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But he's not happy about it. Anna, were you happy about the movie?
Yeah, I was pretty happy about the movie.
Yeah? You enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it. I feel like maybe because it's a comedy, this movie still kind of touches upon some interesting subjects, life questions, things like this. And I feel like for a movie that wants to tackle into those areas, it kind of lacks depth.
Yeah, especially towards the end, you know, we get into pretty deep serious question about like, oh, the rich and what should they do with their fortune.
Right,
and, like,
but it
how
also
to help
doesn't stay
people.
comedic anymore.
Yeah.
So you can do that, you know, a movie can start more as a comedy and end up more as a drama, let's say.
Social commentary. There's the thing
Yeah.
is the ratio of social commentary versus the comedy you think was not balanced well enough?
It's not like it was unbalanced. The comedy was good and it was sufficient in the movie. The social commentary, I feel like it didn't go deep enough.
Should have
It
went
kind of
harder.
remained, it kind of remained shallow. Like, oh, by the way, we should all be good to each other.
Surface level,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you have money, you should share it. with
Exactly.
people, yeah. I feel like in the same vein, it's depiction of small town men and small town people with their deep rooted value and inherent goodness versus the wolves of the city who are nothing but mean. Like, there's something inherently wrong with just portraying rural versus urbanization like that. It's the classic cliche, you know.
Yeah, it's
if you
true.
go to cities, everybody's mean and there's crimes everywhere. And if you live in a smaller town, then you know
Everybody's happy, everybody's your friend,
Exactly.
everybody's like...
which is not necessarily the
morals.
case.
Yeah, obviously.
Of course, in a city there are more people, and so more chances of finding hassles.
Yeah.
But that's not inherent to being in a city that everybody is just out to get you.
Yeah, it's true. Now, I didn't even think about it as I watched the movie, but there is not one character from the city who is moral, has moral values, and
Yeah.
is good.
And vice versa, there is nobody in the small town who is bad. You know, towards the end when they bring these two characters who you think are betraying him from his village, town, whatever, I was thinking, oh, that's pretty interesting actually to have that switch. But no, it's not the case.
Yeah,
you know?
they were just like simple-minded.
Exactly. It wasn't a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. You know, it's entertaining, but you're right that it doesn't go deep enough in certain ways, and also is very surface level in its critique of rich people, poor people, city people, small town people, or its representation of them.
Right, and that's not to say, in my opinion, that it had to do that, but then at least it should have stayed with the comedy.
Right. But you feel like it should have done that because it tips his toe into the social commentary.
Yeah.
There's social commentary throughout the movie about the judgment that they pass on the people who are out to get him and his money because they think he's simple-minded. They think he's, you know, the dumb guy from the small town. We can abuse him. And then in the end, he himself is the center of the social commentary about what rich people should be doing with their money, how they should be helping people. Actually, right now I'm going on a much deeper train of thought about this movie than I was before you ever mentioned that, because I wasn't thinking about it in those terms. I was just thinking like, oh, this is a fun little movie of this small town guy. And then when you said that it doesn't go actually deep enough, I think you're right. I think you're right on that point.
Another thing that I would like to mention, I feel like the highlight of the movie is the main character. And not necessarily like in his moral values or anything like this, but in the way he's written as a character, where he is introduced as a simple small town character being brought into the big city and then dropped in the middle of all of these situations that by default he shouldn't be able to understand. And I like this very fine, like well worked in detail about the character, which is that you do feel like he doesn't have all the knowledge that these people have, like when he talks to the opera people, when he talks to the lawyers, you feel like he doesn't actually understand everything. But once he grasps the situation, he has the better resolution for everything. It's the simple answer that comes when you strip things down of their like fluffy words and flowery words around, that when he understands what it is about, he knows what answer to give. And it surprises people. And it surprised me, seeing him actually understanding things without necessarily, being groomed into this society, as everybody else there was.
Yeah, what I really liked with his character was that he wasn't dumb,
Exactly.
It could have been easy to make like the small town guy who comes to the city, he's actually an idiot, but he's lovable and he's against all these not lovable, knowledgeable people. But no, he's not aware of a lot of these things, like you say, our lawyer firms work or opera is conducted or all these things that the city people are doing. But he's not dumb. He gets it very quickly. He's like, looks at the opera books and is like, you guys are losing money. And like,
it doesn't make sense. Why are you losing money? You're selling tickets, right? You should be making money.
Exactly.
Or like with the lawyer, when the lawyer
tells him like, oh, I'll work for free. It's like, that doesn't make sense. There's
exactly.
something that you want and I'm not gonna let you work for free unless I know what is it you want.
That's exactly what I was talking about. I like this so much about the character, and I like how natural it appears.
Yeah, definitely. He is, in my opinion, the highlight of the movie. Not only the character, but the way he was portrayed by the actor. And I think this is a perfect moment for us to look at some of the actors that are in this movie and the crew in general.
Yeah, let's take a look.
So that movie was directed by Frank Capra, a name that we've been seeing more and more. Of course, Frank Capra, director of Lady for a Day and It Happened One Night. It stars Gary Cooper as Longfellow Deed, who we've seen in Wings. It's been a while, huh?
Oh yeah,
wow.
Long time.
Yes. And A Farewell to Arms, and also in The Lives of a Bengal Lancer. What did you think of Gary Cooper? I was saying that to me, he was the highlight of the movie, like his performance. He was a believable character, likable character. He felt real.
I like that the way the actor portrayed his character, it wasn't on the nose too much, He wasn't making it a point out of saying it, like, oh, I'm from a small town, but I'm not actually stupid. But he made you feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
He made you feel it with every word that came out of his mouth. It was so good.
And he would never say the opposite either, like, I'm smart even though I'm from a small town. He'd be kind of more like, oh, I don't really know a lot about these things, but to me it seems like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you look back on it, you're like, oh yeah, he's right actually. Great performance by Gary Cooper here. What about the main female lead character, who we haven't talked about much as of now? Jean Archer plays Louise/Babe Bennett, or Mary Dawson, the fake name that she gives Longfellow. What do you think of her?
To be honest, I didn't think much of her. I don't think she particularly stands out that much, and I feel like she should have, because really she's one of the two female characters that appears in this movie and the only one who has more than 5 minutes on the screen.
I mean, there were these old ladies at the end.
Yeah, true. But also, they didn't have that much time on the screen either. She is the only female character that we see throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like she should have had a stronger role.
More of a narc also,
Yeah, I suppose that too.
She's being that, sharky newspaper woman in one scene, and then in the other, she's like, I can't do this anymore. And like, you understand from
Yeah.
just a human perspective, just how shitty what she was doing was, and how anybody would feel bad about it. But I feel like there should have been more of a transition, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I would have liked to see just more of her in general. Maybe that would have given her more time to actually dive into those feelings, you know, or like that change of mind, change of heart.
Yeah.
Once she meets Mr. Deeds.
Yeah.
But we don't really see that. Also, the change happens literally after one day. Like one day she's okay with it, and the second day she's not. It's not convincing enough on an emotional level. But as an actress, I think the actress did a good job at portraying her character, and I feel like she did manage to portray both sides of her character, like the sharky, oh, I'll get your information, you know, I'll do whatever it takes for this, but also a more empathic character that she becomes towards the end.
Of course, every movie needs its antagonist, and here the antagonist is kind of almost everyone in town, but
Right.
we have one in particular, John Cedar, the lawyer, played by Douglas Dumbrell, who we've seen in I'm a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, The Lives of a Bengal Lancer, and Naughty Marietta. So what do we think of him? I think the main place we see him is, of course, at the beginning and at the end.
Yeah.
At the end is where he shines the most, I believe.
You can definitely tell that he is the main antagonist. I feel like, again, for a character that's meant to be counterpart to the main character, I would have liked to see more of him. I think he maybe appears
A little
like,
bit in the middle, just
here and there.
to introduce not introduce because we've seen them before, but to make him in contact with, put him in contact with these other members of the family who wanted the money.
Yeah.
Well, that storyline I felt like was just thrown in there. It was useless.
Yeah,
You know?
it didn't go anywhere.
They could have come to the same conclusion they do in the end, like accusing him of being crazy without having
Right.
the other family members. I guess they needed someone to which the money would go to.
Right. Yeah. Well, I feel like on the antagonist side, this movie just doesn't do that well. The antagonists are not well defined in general, the lawyer, but also the other family members, whom I feel like in a story like this could have had a major role.
I thought for sure these are going to be the one to really go after him.
Yeah.
But no, they're just a tool used by Cedar.
That would have worked too, but we didn't really see that
Yeah.
either. We just saw like one scene, 2 minutes of him meeting with them, and that was it.
Two more characters that I want to touch on very quickly because I enjoyed them. Cornelius Cobb, played by Lionel Stander. He's the guy who always helps Deeds, you know, who's there to try to stop the media from going after him, and the PR guy, it seems.
Yeah.
And also another character who helps Deeds is the butler, Walter the butler, played by Raymond Walburn. I just thought these two were entertaining, you know, even though we said that in the city, most of everybody is not depicted in a good way. Even here, Cobb is not necessarily a good person. He's just the one person on the side of Deed.
Yeah, I feel like he's more pragmatic.
Yeah.
It's my job depends on you doing well. So I'm gonna help you do well. And the butler, I really like the butler. But the butler, again, you know, of course he's someone from the city. But if you think of his position, really, he's a subservient person, right?
Yeah.
So
it's his
not
job to
someone-
be nice. It's
Exactly.
not like who knows what the butler does in his spare times. You know?
Yeah.
Great cast in my opinion, led by Gary Cooper, who was actually recognized at the 9th Academy Award, where he was nominated for Best Actor. Did not win though. The movie was also nominated, of course, for Outstanding Production, Best Director for Frank Capra, which he won, Best Adaptation, so Robert Rinsky based on the story Opera Hat by Clarence Buddington Keeland, and Best Sound Recording by John P. Liverdry. So out of 5 nominations, 1 win.
Okay, that is pretty
That's
good.
good.
And 5 nominations, that's good.
And a big win for Frank Capra here, Best Director. So this movie was very popular. So popular, in fact, that it's been done and redone since then.
Okay.
First of all, there was a planned sequel named Mr. Deed Goes to Washington that was supposed to happen, but in the end, they did another movie called Mr. Smith Goes to Washington because Cooper wasn't available.
Okay, so
To
they
reprise
took
as
another
well.
character.
Yes, that movie came out in 1939. But Mr. Deed Goes to Town was also adapted on radio format in 1937 with the cast reprising their role for that.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. The movie, 1960s movie Raja Saja, not sure I said that well,
Okay.
is a Bengali adaptation of this film. So, hey, international remakes.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
that's big.
There was also a short-lived ABC television series from 1969 to 1970.
Okay.
So that was an adaptation of this, a TV adaptation. One that you might know, one that I've seen, is the 2002 pseudo adaptation called Mr. Deed, starring Adam Sandler.
I hadn't watched that movie. I know of it, but I never watched it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure it was the same thing, but when I saw the title, I thought of like the Mr. D that I knew from 2002. And then once the movie started, I was like, wait a minute, this is the same movie, like a similar story. It's not the same movie at all, but a very similar story. The Adam Sandler one is much more on the comedic side. And maybe the most surprising, there was a Japanese manga adaptation of Mr. D Goes to Town that was made in 2010.
A manga?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that is surprising. So a popular story, but I can see this story being popular, you know. I feel like at the core it's a simple story that can be easily adapted to different times, to different scenarios, you know.
And I feel like even though I'm a bit against it, the idea at its core transcends. You know, it's an idea that a lot of people are accustomed to and share, that idea that like small town people have these values, and when they go to the city, you know, they have to deal with city people who are not necessarily always the best people. So Anna, before we move on to our ranking of this movie within the other movies of the year, I want to ask you, do you have any other elements you want to talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
I guess one thing that we didn't really talk about in the story development, the romance, the relationship between the Mr. Deeds and
Dawson. No, that's her fake name. Babe Bennett.
Right. And I wanted to say that despite the fact that I feel like the female character in general in the movie wasn't present as much, or like wasn't outlined like strongly enough, the relationship worked really well. In my opinion, I feel like that's where you see her the most, actually, is when she interacts with him, and that is the side of her that you see the most.
It's interesting, you know, because he always said he wanted a girl that he would rescue, you know, that was his big dream, the damsel in distress. And even though she lied about how she was in distress when they first met, you could say that in a sense he rescued her from the life that she had.
Right, yeah.
One thing that I want to touch on, and maybe one of my most annoying moments while I was watching this movie, is during the courthouse scene, which is simultaneously to me home of the best and the worst moments. The worst to me was all that time during which Longfellow Deed, Gary Cooper's character, would say nothing. He was being accused of everything and would say nothing. They were saying he was crazy. They brought all these people to talk against him. And then understanding if he's like, okay, well, let them talk, it doesn't concern me. But no, it very much concerns you. They're gonna send you in a hospital for crazy people.
Right. It's not even as if they would just take away his money.
He didn't want the money. I
Because he
understand
didn't care
that.
about that, so I understand. But yeah, they're gonna lock him up. Like, he was just sitting there. But I feel like the thing is that it works well for the story. It just doesn't
make sense character-wise.
Yeah.
Like a real human being wouldn't do that. It works well for the story because it makes the moment when he decides to talk that much more powerful.
Right.
And that was actually, when I was saying the best and the worst moment, that was the best moment for me. Like when he starts talking and point out that all these people think I'm crazy, think I'm out there, but we all are, you know?
Yeah, I'm no different than everyone else.
Exactly. And he points out like one by one all of their arguments, how really they don't make sense and they were just looking for someone to laugh at because he comes from a small town. But all of that is kind of reduced and augmented by the fact that he didn't talk. It's augmented because the moment is stronger in the movie. It's reduced because no real person in real life would just sit there silently when his fate is being decided.
I mean, the thing is that I would believe that he would have just sat there and listened until it was his turn to talk. But they had asked him so many times before, like, aren't you gonna say anything? Do you want to say anything?
Defend yourself, yeah.
And he would just say nothing. Like, if at least they would have written the story in a way in which, okay, everybody else talks, and then he talks at the end.
Because also, let's be clear here. They have the case against him, you know, and someone comes to him, I think it was Cobb, who said, oh, they have a really strong case against you. You know, you need a lawyer, you need this, you need that. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah,
even people who
ridiculous.
really have, you know, mental issues, you know, or mentally ill, it is so hard for them to convince, you know, judge or juries that they are mentally ill. Yeah. Someone who is sane will never so easily, because I don't want to say never because that might happen, but so easily be accused of being insane without like some very concrete proof, other than just he likes to play the tuba right, when it's thinking. Like, okay.
Yeah, there are things that don't really make sense, and I feel like you could have dismissed them if you thought of this movie only as a comedy. But as I mentioned in the beginning, the last third of the movie, let's say, towards the end of the movie, the comedy is almost completely dropped.
Yeah.
And it becomes very like serious and social commentary and all of that. And so those elements like being unrealistic kind of bothers me.
Pop up more. Yeah. Well, Anna, would you say you recommend this movie?
I don't know if... Yes, I think I would recommend it.
Yeah, I'm surprised you hesitated it so much. I would recommend it. Yeah.
Okay. It took me a moment because I feel like there are a few elements that kind of bother me. But when you think about it, as I said, this movie it has a relatively simple story that is interesting to follow. At the end, it has a message which is good. It's a good message and it's well delivered. Yeah, I think also Gary Cooper's interpretation I thought was really good.
Yeah, I would recommend it if only to, recommend Longfellow Deed. He's a great character to watch, to get behind. And that courthouse scene, when he does decide to talk, it's just from the moment he opens his mouth until he's done, pure bliss. You're like, oh, yeah.
Totally.
Well, Anna, it is now time for us to rank.
Let's rank.
Mr. Deed Goes to Town. We will rank it in our list of movies that were nominated for Best Pictures at the 9th Academy Award, the 1936 Academy Award. As of now, our list is at number 3, Anthony Adverse. At number 2, Libeled Lady. And at number 1, Dodsworth. Where should we put Mr. Deed Goes to Town? So I'm going to start by saying above Anthony Adverse, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So now Libeled Lady. Actually, I would say above Libeled Lady also.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Below Dodsworth.
Yeah, Dodsworth still stays number 1. It's just too good of a movie as of now.
Mm-hmm. But no, this one was entertaining. And, maybe it felt like during the review we were complaining a bit more than we were praising. But in my opinion, these were more like nitpicked. These were the few elements on an overall good movie that popped out to us as kind of questionable. But overall, it was a good movie. So yeah, at number 2, I would say is a good spot.
Yeah, I agree. Number 2.
So our new ranking is at number 4, Anthony Adverse. At number 3, Libeled Lady. At number 2, Mr. Deed Goes to Town. And at number 1, yet again, Dodsworth, reigning champ.
It stays at number 1. Oh, yes.
Well, that was it for our review of Mr. Deed Goes to Town. If you want to see more from us, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Like this video if you did.
Bye.
Comment in the comment section below. Have you ever seen this movie? And if you have, what did you think of it?
Or any other adaptation of it.
Yeah, or the manga.
Yeah.
If you read the manga, I want to know. And don't forget that this channel is a bucket list channel, so we do a lot of other stuff apart from watching movies. We have game goals, we have travel goals, self-growth goals. Go check them out. It's all good. And don't forget that if you yourself have a goal or a dream that you'd like to realize, take that first step.